is a worldwide neighborhood with neighbors on every side. Wherever you go, there is someone to love, the width of the whole world wide. Who is my neighbor? Where can he be? How may I help her say? She is next door and across the sea, and you meet him every day. Someday I pray that peace will come to neighbors everywhere, and the neighborhood that is the world will be lovely beyond compare. Who is my neighbor? Where can he be? How may I help her say? She is next door and across the sea, and you meet him every day.
Back again with another session of Good Neighbors, and I have with me a wonderful guest today whose name is Rita Shiano, multi-talented with much to tell us. Hi, Rita.
Good morning, Tasha.
I am so glad you're here today with me.
Thank you very much.
This has been exciting. I've been looking forward to this.
I have too. I was thrilled when you sent me the email and asked me if I would be willing to come and chat with you on your show.
Well, this is great. What I want to start out by acquainting people with who you are. And you do a lot of different kinds of wonderful things in the field of helping people to help themselves, right?
I would say that's accurate.
How did you begin doing this? How did this come about for you?
I think the work that I do now really grew out of the work that I do in a classroom, because I think teaching is fundamental. I think people having education in their life, whether they're self-taught, whether they go through a traditional program at a school, but no matter which way you do that, whether it's self-taught or not, you have to have the guidance from somewhere. And so in teaching at Bay Path College, it really helped me to pull together other areas of my life that I didn't see melded, which was at the same time I was doing training in stress management and resilience building. So as I started to develop the class for the college on how to be stronger, how to be more resilient, how to manage all the multiple things that come through our lives that cause us stress and discomfort and discordance, it just seemed to move almost dynamically into the work that I do now.
And how does that doesn't sound like there's a lot of difference to what you do now. Now you give workshops and trainings and things on your own as opposed to through the college? Yes,
that's right. I work one-on-one with people. I work in groups through corporations or organizations. And the variety of people that I've had a chance to work with and speak with has just been wonderful. Everything from nonprofits to, I have something coming up early in the beginning of the year, talking to a group of mothers of twins.
Neat, neat. That sounds like fun. Well, now, when you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh boy, you got time for this one? This could be the whole 30 minutes.
Yeah.
One of the first things I wanted to be when I grew up was a spy.
Really?
Because,
oh, wonderful.
You know, Tasha, I grew up, you know, I'm a product, I was born in 1955. I'm a product of 60s television. And if you really think about it, little girls got their first example of women who could be something other than Mrs. Cleaver, other than Donna Reed. Suddenly, when I was 9 and 10 years old, there was April Dancer, the girl from Uncle. There was Honey West. There were all these exciting women doing things that you never saw women do on television.
Oh,
so when I'm looking at Honey West and April Dancer, I thought, wow, I want to be a spy. And I was so interested in that. I remember going to the library. I mean, I've had a library card since I was 5 years old. I remember going to the library and getting out books on fingerprinting and the FBI and making my own little fingerprinting kits with baby
How
powder in my
interesting.
mother's old compact case
Oh,
and little brushes.
wow.
And I used to little miniature cameras. I was always keeping a record of something. But then somewhere along the way, that changed. And I think, again, maybe the media had some bearing on that, because television became a bit more realistic.
Yeah.
And I think the fear in me of I could really get hurt if I'm out there as Spy Girl.
Right.
But what that brought up in me was just a passion to be something other than I was. And that kind of then spurred an interest that I had as a teenager and into my young adulthood in theater and being part of a theater group.
Oh.
So this ability to be in front of people and take them someplace where they are not at that moment, whether they're the audience in the stage or even in a classroom.
In a classroom.
Because that's what you do with students.
Right.
You help to bring them to a different level of understanding of a topic. And in the work that I do with the stress management class at the college, or the trainings that I do, is to help people take a look at themselves and see, where else could I be in my life? But in order to answer that question, they have to take that look back to see, how did I get where I am?
How did I get where I was? Yeah. That's an interesting point, too.
You never expected Spy Girl, did you?
No, I think that is magnificent. It's the first time I've ever heard that, you know, and I think it's so original. You're not by any chance a Scorpio, are you?
I'm not. I'm an Aries Taurus right on the cusp. My mother was a Scorpio,
Yeah.
and she was a
Okay.
major influence in my life.
Well, because Scorpios make great detectives.
Do they?
Yeah, they do. They do. They love to ferret out information. I am a Scorpio. I should know.
Hence, you were doing the interview.
Oh, that's right. Only it's not really an interview. It's a conversation, a good neighbor's conversation. But I think that is very intriguing. But do you find that you still ferret out information? But you get people to reveal it to themselves rather than to you.
Yes, I do. Because my background in education is actually in philosophy. So I think I take much more of a Socratic approach. I definitely take a Socratic approach in the classroom. And I try to do that in my training. Yes, I'm there to give information. But the bottom line is I'm helping to bring out of people what it is they know about themselves. I take, again, too, going back to philosophy, as well as I take that Socratic method of asking the questions. I also have much more of an Aristotelian approach, because I think it's important for people to ask themselves those questions that Aristotle posed so long ago in the Nicomachean Ethics, which is to look at your life once you reach adulthood, to look at your life, to look back at your story and say, what are the habits that serve me and what are the habits that don't serve me?
That's a good question. What are the habits that serve me and what are the habits that don't? You know, I wonder how many people in our viewing audience have thought about what are the habits that serve them and what are the habits that don't. That would be something that would occupy a lot of thinking.
And it does, because
Yeah.
you can't, it's usually the hard thing for people to look at, I have found, is to really take a look at what are the habits that don't serve them. It's like they'll say, I don't know where to start, Rita. Well, I think the starting point really is quite simple. What are the things that happen in your life or that you do in your life, and you say, you know what? I tried a different way, I had a different approach, and I have the same old lousy outcome. This doesn't make me happy. And whatever that is, within that question are the habits that don't serve you. The negativity that maybe you bring to something, the fear, that's the big one. That's the big 4-letter word, is that fear that people have. But where does the fear stem from? And those are those early things we learn in life.
Yeah. Feelings of inadequacy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you think that that's the, I mean, I've often thought to myself, what is the most inhibiting factor for people who want to make progress but don't seem to be able to, or feel blocked or stuck or whatever? And for me, it's self-consciousness. People are, and fear comes into that. People are afraid, oh, what will someone think if I do this? Or what will someone think if, you know. My parents, I remember them so well. They would talk about other people constantly, and they would say, well, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. Or they, you know, I heard this, I heard that. And I grew up kind of self-conscious as a result, because I thought, well, people will be looking at me. People will be thinking about what I'm doing and stuff. I found out that's not true. Most people are much too involved with what they're thinking
doing
about.
That's right.
To themselves. They have very little interest in what anybody else is doing or thinking or behaving, unless it's something perfectly outrageous. But
you know, Tasha, I think that gets at the heart of people's self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things that I like to tell my students is that self-esteem to me truly is an equation.
Mm-hmm.
Your self-confidence plus your self-worth is what equals your self-esteem. And I give them a homework assignment. I even do this in training sessions. I give people a homework assignment. And anyone watching this, here is your homework assignment.
Good.
Every day when you have that 2 minutes of privacy, you know, in the morning in the bathroom,
Mm-hmm.
look at yourself in the mirror. Take a look at yourself right in the eyes, because that's the hardest thing for people to do, is to look at themselves in the eye in the mirror, because you tend to get caught up with, women particularly, I've got this line, my hair roots are getting gray, you know, all of those things. But to
Right.
look at yourself in the mirror, look at yourself in the eyes, and tell yourself one good thing about you. One good thing about you. Tasha, what would you tell yourself tomorrow morning?
I would tell myself what I almost always do, which is, I love you.
I love you. If you do that exercise every day, I tell people, what you do is you create a list. Now, I had this thought from a training I was doing one time, where I was asking this group. It was a not-for-profit organization, a company that works with people who have physical and mental challenges in their life. And their job is to help them find their place in the community, get some work. So I asked the question, I said, who in this room is self-confident? You ask that question of a group of 20, 30 people. Let me tell you, you don't get a lot of hands.
You don't get a lot of hands.
But there was this one woman whose hand was raving, and all her coworkers were laughing and nodding. Oh yeah, she's got self-confidence to go out the window. So I said to her, I said, what makes you so self-confident? How do you keep this up every day? And I remember, Tasha, from the moment she walked in the room, you could see it, the way she carried herself, the smile upon her. She just carried herself with this tremendous presence of who she was. And she's the one who gave me this idea for the homework assignment, because she said, she had this little accent, and she said to herself, every day when I get up, I look at myself in the mirror and I say, dang, you're a beautiful woman. Dang, you a fox. She says, then I go find my husband and I say, you know how lucky you are to be married to this good-looking woman like me? And I'm thinking to myself, dang, what a brilliant lesson.
Yeah.
So I thought, ooh, she's going to make my job so easy right now, because I had an idea what the answer was. And I said, why do you do that every day? She said, because when I walk into work, I deal every day with people who have so many challenges in their life. And if I can't help them make them, if I don't feel good about myself when I walk in the door, how do I make them feel good about themselves? And it was really a brilliant lesson. So I'm sharing this with my students, no idea that I'm going to give them this homework assignment. And, you know, one of my students said, well, you know, somebody, attitude makes me not feel good, tries to shake my self-confidence. I show them the hand. And I thought to myself, well, good for you. I'm from New York. We say, hey, don't make me move my neck. You want to show them the hand? I want you to do this exercise. And that's where the idea of the homework assignment came up. Because if you do that every day, you tell yourself, I love myself. I'm beautiful, I'm intelligent, I'm smart, I'm a good mother. What makes you a good mother? I listen to my children, I have empathy. If you do that, you now have a list of your self-worth. So that first part of that equation, someone tries to shake your self-confidence, when you put up that hand, you turn that hand around and you make that a hand mirror. And you look at that list of all those things you told about yourself, and that boosts your self-esteem. So it's an equation. Self-confidence plus self-worth equals self-esteem. And that's what we need to build in people.
We do.
Particularly our young people, our young girls who have so many body issues. And
I know.
It's frightening.
It's the
frightening.
media, unfortunately. It's interesting. I was reading a poem on the gotpoetry.com site that I like so much. And the poem was about the artificiality of women. And it was written by a gentleman who was sad because he said there's, it makes him sad when he sees these people. They think so much of themselves, and they're all fake. And it's the wrong kind of it's not self-esteem. It's lack of self-esteem that makes people go out and get plastic surgery or spend enormous amounts of money on clothes or makeup. Oh my goodness, the makeup. Or or whatever, and in trying to cover up a sense of inadequacy inside, which is fostered by people who want to sell you stuff like makeup and clothes and plastic surgery.
I hope, I think a very popular show on television right now is Dancing with the Stars. I don't know if you ever watched
I have.
that. Are you watching it this season?
No, I watched it once.
I watched it once too prior to the season. I watched it the year Marlee Matlin was on because I wanted to see this deaf woman dance.
Yeah.
I wanted to see how that worked. But this year I went to it for different reasons, but I have fallen in love with a gentleman on there named J.R. Martinez.
Oh.
This man, I think, can be the person who tackles that self-confidence. He is now an actor on a TV soap. But several years ago, he was a serviceman serving in, I believe it was Iraq, and his vehicle hit a landmine. The man lost a good portion of his face.
Wow.
And when you see him, at first, you notice the disfigurement, the fact that he's missing an ear, the scars, he has no hair, the things about his face that most people would frighteningly run away from. And then you see this man smile, and you see his soul come out of his eyes.
Wow.
And you see the passion that he brings to his life. And what a remarkable story. I hope this and he's a darn good dancer, but I hope this young man really, really goes all the way with this, because there's a lesson for the youth. It's not about how you look. It's not about the shell that we have. It's about the strength, that inner strength that you have, that belief in yourself, that when you are in the depths of your life, to be able to find that essence of who you are.
Well, and find it and project it forward. Yeah, right. I saw something. Someone sent me a clip recently about another handicapped type person. This was that British show. This was on that British show, The X Factor. It was called The X Factor, and this was someone who came out and sang, and he had been. Did you see that?
I saw that clip.
You
it was
saw
up,
that clip.
Yeah, a lot of people put that through on Facebook.
Yeah, that was remarkable, and he had no arms, or he had little stumpy arms, and he'd been thrown into a trash can in Iran, and rescued, and was in an orphanage, and then he was adopted along with his brother, who had the same issues. And it was amazing, what he did, even the way he projected himself, and the total lack of of feeling a victim. You know, this is another thing that we were talking about this earlier. It's the feeling of being a victim that keeps people down. You know, if people think, oh, poor old me, you know, I've got this, I have that problem, this and that, you know, it's much harder for them to think, if you think of your problems as challenges, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, that's a big difference in a word, being challenged and being victimized.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this the other day, and I haven't come up with a full, complete thought process on it, but I was waiting for, I was in a car waiting for someone. Actually, it was just yesterday, and I noticed on the door of the church near where we were parked, it said tornado victims entrance, because I live in central Mass, as you know, where the tornado came right through.
Right.
And I kept looking at that sign saying tornado victims, victims. Are they truly victims? And I'm not sure what that word means anymore because it is bandied about so much. People have this victim consciousness.
Right.
And if you hold on to that, you dig yourself deeper down into the depths, you know, into the morass, and you can't after a while pull yourself up.
Well, yeah, and it can then you have to hope for divine intervention for somebody who really can't pull themselves up. People like you can sometimes provide the impetus, the spark, if you will, but it's very difficult to get through to somebody if they don't already know in their heart the truth of what you are saying.
Right. And that's really where the lessons all begin. You know, I can go out there and I can talk about a lot of concepts, but until people move away from that abstract concept and internalize what that means for themselves.
For them.
You know,
Yeah.
I tell my students at the start of the semester, those who take the stress management class, I tell them this is going to be one of the easiest classes you're going to take this session because there's not a ton of reading. You know, you don't have 70 to 100 pages. You don't have to turn in a paper to me every week. It's going to be a much easier class. However, it's also going to be the hardest class you take because at the end, they build for themselves a stress management and a resilience building plan, a personal plan, and the amount of self-examination that goes on in that class and that intense 5 hours every Saturday for 6 weeks and the work they have to do as they go through their workbook and they answer these questions and the self-reflection, that's what's going to make this class tough. So, you know, decide now whether or not you're going to stay or drop it. It'll be your easiest and yet your most challenging.
Yeah. Well, now, you said you were a philosophy major, but you must have studied psychology.
I did. I studied psychology as well. I was working a dual major when I was an undergraduate. And so psychology was a big part.
Yeah.
Actually, I started in psychology because, again, I guess kind of going back to the Spy Girl theme as a kid, part of me wanted to be a criminal psychologist when I first started college.
Right.
Until I worked at a mental hospital with the criminally insane, and again, they're scared the heck out of me, and I thought, I don't have what it takes for this.
Whoa.
You know, it's like a doctor who's afraid of the sight of blood.
Yeah,
you know?
not a good thing.
But then I discovered philosophy, and I fell in love with it. You know, I really think that there's anything we need to know about how we live our lives. We go back to those old wise guys. You know, we go back to Seneca and Aristotle and Plato and Socrates. There are so many lessons then, and a lot of what people talk about in books like The Secret and all these books, if you really take a look at those statements, it's just a rehash and a rewording of what was said by these, what I call my early wise guys, the ancient wise guys.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing that interests me is it keeps getting rediscovered, but the ancient wisdom has been around.
And you know why? It's because the lessons are so simple. The lesson is so simple. And people don't want to grasp it because they expect it to be hard. The hard part is your willingness to embrace it and do it. The lesson itself really is quite simple. You know, when Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do, that means it's the same old, same old. That's why you keep getting the same results, because you're not changing the way. It's just the outer, the environment or the situation. But your way of going through it, again, that habit that doesn't serve you, is that repeated action.
The interesting thing is, I'm thinking about a client that I have, you know, does what you're talking about, keeps on, you know, and getting the same results. And I'm thinking to myself, but maybe the result he's getting is the result he wants. Because maybe what he wants is for people to feel sorry for him rather than to succeed.
That's that victim mentality.
And maybe what he wants is to get attention as a result of the failure or the problem or the issue rather than to resolve it. And those are the people you really can't do much for except say, oh dear, that's too bad. They won't hear you because their agenda is not as stated.
Yeah.
But and it's not even plain to them, and it won't be either.
You know, and some of those people, you can kickstart them by saying, well, you know what, I'm cutting our strings, you have to move on.
Right.
And sometimes when you cut that string, then the fear of, wait a second, maybe this was my opportunity to change my life. But
that would be wonderful, but chances are, well, they'll just go find somebody else to tell their sad stories to. I don't know. It's tricky. It's tricky. I've been in the people helping business for a very long time myself, and I remember someone said to me, you know, you should, this was many years ago when I was still just a young mother at home with children, you should have a job where you make people feel good, where you hold their hand and make them feel good all day long. And I thought to myself, well, it's sort of what I've evolved into, isn't it? It's kind of funny. But I think, you know, you can be supportive up to a point. But I don't know, I have a neighbor who gets 3 or 4 and sometimes more phone calls a day from someone who just needs someone to talk to. And she'll talk to her for half an hour or so, and then she'll complain afterwards, oh, she had me on the phone all this time. And I say to myself, well, why didn't you go away? You know, you could have said.
She doesn't know how to say no.
And but I don't say anything because she believes that this is her way of helping the woman. Who am I to interfere?
She probably needs that too.
Who am I to interfere?
For who she identifies herself as.
You know,
we don't know what drives people when it comes right down to it. Only they know what drives them.
Only they know, and they don't even know really. I mean, it's so funny. We've got 3 minutes.
Wow.
Oh my goodness, where did time go? Well, I want you to tell our viewing audience, I want you to leave them with what you think would be the best thing for them to think about. Aside from which I thought the homework lesson was really good, and that's something I hope that you've heard and will think about. But aside from the homework lesson, what would be your message to the people, the viewing audience?
Well, I think it would be to take a risk to challenge yourself. If you find you are in that situation that Tasha and I have been talking about today, of not always happy that you're getting the same results that you don't like, be willing to take just one step backwards, to take a look, just one small step backwards, to take a look, what is a habit that is driving me here? Because once you take that one small step backwards and identify that habit that doesn't serve you, it truly does enable you to leap forward 3 or 4 paces in your life. So that's my guess, my hope. That people will challenge themselves on one small thing.
One small thing.
One small
and
step.
one small thing is often the most important of things. like, you know, sewing on the button before it comes off.
Absolutely.
One small thing. Little homely things are often the ones that stay with us the longest. I want to thank you all for watching, and I hope that maybe you've learned something today from my wonderful guest, Rita Schiano. And she has her own website at www.
Either ritaschiano.com or, if you can't remember how to spell my name, just the words Live a Flourishing Life.
Live a Flourishing Life. And
join me on Facebook if you're there.
There's a wonderful opportunity to connect with Rita. She's pretty special, as I expect you have already figured out. Thanks and bye for now.
Oh, the world is a worldwide neighborhood with neighbors on every side. Wherever you go, there is someone to love, the width of the whole world wide. Who is my neighbor? Where can he be? How may I help her say? She is next door and across the sea, and you meet him every day.